fitness has now been prioritized. People realize you can have all the money and the power and the job titles that you want or the wealth, but your health is most important. And one of the best ways to do it and the most fun way is to get into sports.
So you're someone who's probably, I was reading up, you have over your lifetime, as you were competing, you had over 600 medals.
Yeah.
Where do you keep all of this at your home?
There's 600 gold medals.
Gold medals, wow, sorry. 600 gold medals. That's a massive number.
Rahul Dravid's kids used to swim with us. Last day, he wanted to see how his kids are swimming. You won't believe, I literally could not conduct my class that day. All the moms are standing there. Rahul, my brother went to school with you and Joseph.
What is that you will have to tell to the parents now so that they can encourage their kids?
I was actually a very quiet, timid kid growing up. My parents saw how my demeanor changed, my confidence levels changed. So they always told me the day you want to quit, you can quit. So that's also something I think that parents forget to do. It's great to support your kids, but also give them that autonomy to say, I've had it with the sport.
From a different lens, I realized that embracing failure and uncertainty kind of came very naturally to you.
Vulnerability is very tough and so nice to see now. Any of our athletes saying, I have mental health issues, I'm going to pull out of the competition. Simone
Biles.
Biles said, I'm at the Olympics, I'll take part in the team, I'm not in a mental frame of mind to do the Olympics. So that takes so much of maturity. I think Vinesh Pogod or something as well had this issue with mental health and we talk about it. One of my daughters, and they're twins, they're exact same age, they look the same, they are same height, same weight. One of them is very aggressive like me, like she wants to beat everyone, she wants to race, she wants to compete. And then the other one is like, everybody, let's make friends. I got the medal, but you're looking sad, take my medal.
Hi, welcome to The Other Side. I'm your host Dilip, an entrepreneur and an endurance athlete. In this podcast, we will explore the experiences of high-performing individuals while unpacking their mental and physical fitness routines that took them to where they are.
Hi, welcome back to another new episode of the podcast. Today's guest is Nisha Millet. She's India's finest swimmer, an Arjuna Award winner, and the only swimmer to represent India at the 2000 Olympics. She's a mother of two, an entrepreneur, and also trying to train to be an endurance runner and a CrossFitter. There's a lot to unpack and explore her other side. Let's get into the podcast. This podcast is supported by the good folks at Rainmatter Health. It's an initiative to invest and support into entrepreneurs and innovators building solutions to help Indians stay healthy. If you're one of them and need any sort of support, please reach out to Rainmatter Health. Before we get into the podcast, I have a request. It would mean a lot to me if you can subscribe to this channel on any of the platforms you're listening or watching. It could be YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts. Also, your comments and feedback would help me a lot to improve in what I'm doing. So please send me your comments either via email, Twitter, LinkedIn, or just leave it on YouTube. I'll reply and get back to you. Thank you. Let's get on to the podcast. Okay, Nisha, thank you. Thank you for taking time, coming and having this conversation with me. I was telling you offline over messages also. I have a lot of curiosity. I've only read about you, heard from other folks, and it's probably the closest I can get to be with an Olympian.
Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure to have you on board.
Thanks. Excited to be here.
Yeah, great. So first question, the hardest one, what was your workout today morning?
This morning actually was my mobility day, the one day that I've realized I need to rest and recover. So I had an early morning swimming class where I didn't get in the pool, I just coached. I then went over to my gym. I do CrossFit every day, but today was 1 hour of mobility. And then I had a very, very tough 1 hour of yoga. So I work with another CrossFitter, who really works on opening up my hips, just working on, when you build so much of strength with CrossFit, you also need to work on mobility. Yeah. So that's my goal for this year.
Wow. So that's another thing which you got to unpack, a swimmer who's working on mobility and CrossFit. What was on the breakfast plate?
Today I had a dahi vada.
Wow. So very unusual athlete breakfast.
I mean, for me, if you know one thing about me is I love food, and I think a while after having kids and putting on weight, when I was very worried about what I ate, I was, almost obsessed to one point. And right now I've come to a point, I think it was this magic button that happened, that just clicked when I turned 40. And I just I love my food, I keep saying, what if I die tomorrow? I wouldn't have had that hot chocolate fudge sundae. So, I mean, I train enough, and for the most part, I eat healthy and I eat at home. So, if I'm out with friends and I want to have a French toast or a dosa, nice benne dosa, I will go ahead and do it for sure.
For all the sacrifices you did in your formative years, I think a French toast and a chocolate fudge is all worth it, right?
Yeah, actually, we have really high calorie diets when we are growing up as athletes. And I never had weight problems. I was about 56 kgs through my, 10, 12-year swimming career. So I never knew about counting calories. In fact, it was get more fuel in. So even now, if I'm stressed with work or if anything else is, stressing me out a bit, I am quite a comfort eater. I feel like I need my carbs, to function well. So I've just come to this point in my life where I'm like, it's not a big deal, if I have a little extra something. And for the most part, I have some really good habits. I don't touch caffeine. I don't touch alcohol. I don't touch nicotine.
Wow.
So I'm like, okay, I have to have some vice. So my vice is sugar. So I'm cutting it down, but finding more healthier options, whether it's fruits or dark chocolate, but I'm not going to give it up for sure.
Sure. It's good to have that clarity that you're not going to give it up.
Yeah,
you're going to balance it out. So you're someone who's probably, I was reading up, you have over your lifetime, as you were competing, you had over 600 medals.
Yeah.
Where do you keep all of this at your home?
600 gold medals.
Gold medals. Wow,
my
sorry.
Silver and bronze.
600 gold medals. That's a massive number.
Yeah.
Where do you keep all of that?
Funnily enough, all the smaller medals, I would say, are in a big bag, 2 big bags under my parents' bed. It's literally propping up one of the beds. But, they're not actual gold medals. They're not even gold plated. Even at the Olympics, you just get gold plated medals. So I think after a point, just the ones that mean a lot to me, doesn't have to be gold. Like the first medal I ever won in an Asian competition, it's a bronze medal. My Olympic medallion, which is not a medal, it's a medallion that everyone gets. Those are displayed in my house, just a few. But if you come to my house now, you'll see like 25 of my kids' medals and maybe 4 of mine. So I don't think I place as much importance on it now because I got so many. I think at one point you just start putting it in a bag. So more about the timings or the national record or a PB. So it was fun, but I can see the same excitement in my kids. They've just started winning medals now. So they're collecting medals. They want a medal hanger. We didn't have all these things,
Right.
Mom and dad would bring a board and they would cut the medal and then, with the bell pin, they would pin it up. So it was fun, but I competed a lot, which is why I won so much. From the time I learned to swim at 9. By 10, I started racing. And by 10 itself, even though I was a sub-junior, I started racing the seniors. So whether I came first or last, I would just compete. So I love competition.
Wow.
So the story of the gold medal is just wanting to be out there and compete more than the actual medal.
Wow. So you have often said that the 2 men who has played a pivotal role in your life, your dad and your husband.
Yes.
We'll get to your husband later because he's, I would assume, probably the
Correct.
latter part of your life.
Yeah.
But in terms of chronology, you've been an athlete, you're a mother of 2, and an entrepreneur now. So there's a lot to unpack. But in your formative years, talk to me the importance of your dad beyond the parental role. How did he, what that primary impact he brought into who you are today?
That's a good question. I think for me, it was probably the mental element, which in those days, no one talked about. It was about go and do so many kilometers in the pool. But right from teaching me how to swim, because I had a very bad fear of water, which a lot of people have read about. I had a near drowning when I was 5. I didn't want to go near water. So the first part was, convincing me that I need to go. It's fun. Swimming is fun. And at that point, he never thought of me competing. He was always a big sports fan. He would make me watch matches of Steffi Graf and say, maybe one day you'll be a champion. And funnily enough, I never touched a tennis racket for many, many years. And then when he knew I had this fear of water, he just wanted me to get in and enjoy the water because he grew up in Chennai by the beach, swimming in, running on a Marina Beach, jumping into the ocean. And finally, when he got me into the pool and he realized that, wow, this girl is picking up really fast. And then I got obsessed quite easily, right? So as a sports person, most competitive sports people have that level of obsession. Like I remember getting chicken pox when I was very young. And everyone said, don't take her anywhere. She shouldn't go to the pool. So obviously, because it's, it could be spread to other kids, I couldn't enter the water. So he said, why are you so why you're waiting to get out of the house? Come on, let's go and jog around the park where you're not in touch with anyone. So I just really improved on my fitness. So I think he was there to mentally get me strong, whether it is my first swim meet where I didn't do too well or the first time I won a state medal. And I think he put it in my head and my sisters had as well, that we could do anything we wanted. When I was about 10 years old, I was watching the Barcelona Olympics. I was just an average swimmer at that point. I had just started competitive training. And I remember watching somebody called Matt Biondi, who's a world and Olympic champion, and he was doing the butterfly. And there was, televised on DD Sports or whatever it was at that point of time. And I just looked at him and I said, wow, I want to go to the Olympics. And I think the greatest gift, not only my dad, but my mom as well, did for a young 10-year-old is not to laugh at me. They looked at me very seriously, like, sure, we'll do everything we can if that is your dream. And I put in the effort, they put in, I would say, double the effort. If I look now as a parent, I think I understand even more of how much of sacrifices in terms of blood, sweat and tears, they kind of put that effort in to kind of get me there. So while my mom took care of, in those days, my mom, dad and my coach were like my team. Now you have this whole posse of people, sports specialists. But at that point, my mom would do my diet. My dad would do my mental training. He would also read up, books on swimming, on technique, speak to me about it, which is something not many other parents would do. They'd leave the kid at the pool, they'll go and have coffee with their friends. So while my parents did a little bit of that, they were like, we want to be there. They would discuss with me at the dining table. My sister also started swimming. So it became like family sport. We ate, slept and dreamt swimming. So that really helped, being so involved. And the fact that my dad, even though he's not a competitive athlete himself, I think he knew like the right buttons to push, whether it's me who's a little more aggressive when I'm competing. I work with a lot of like a negative reinforcement. So if I'm doing badly and you say, maybe you're not cut out for this, I'll be like, okay, I'm going to prove you wrong. If you do the same thing with my sister, it'll just backfire. So how he handled my sister and me with very, very different personalities, temperaments, racing styles. So I think that really helps. So definitely he is someone right from pushing me out there to compete. He said, forget about how old people are. Forget about if you're competing with a man or a woman. Just race everyone in a pool, So I started racing even the boys in Chennai. But that's when he decided, okay, in the middle of a school year, he just said, we need to do what's best for your swimming. And he moved us to Bangalore, So he took these tough calls, which meant giving up his job, selling our house, putting that money into swimming. So a lot of planning, I think, on his part and not much help. It was really my parents and maybe one or two coaches who really got me to where I was.
So, Grad, kudos to him to do all of that. It's an absolutely an outlierish effort.
Yeah.
And it's also, I say, very unique in the sense that, India largely is a middle class society even now. And back in 80s, when you were growing up, it was even not that very progressive where families were sending their kids to sports, right? It's either you do academics and sports was an extracurricular activity, right? It's
Definitely.
extra always. It's never primary. And there you had a dad who was encouraging you. And a common pattern, which I was trying to, as you were talking, I'm trying to figure it out. One of the greatest athletes, if you see, be the Tiger Woods, the Serena, the Williams sisters, or even back home, Leander Pace.
Yes, of course.
Their dads were their first coach.
Definitely.
Right? But it may not always be good, right? So what's the advantage and what's the disadvantage of having your dad as your first coach?
I think at one point, maybe they reach a point where they're not technically skilled enough and they need to hand you over to somebody more skilled. So they need to know when that is, but they still need to play a pivotal role in your career because at the end of the day, you would think that your own family, your father would have your best interest at heart. So I would say that he took some very tough calls. A couple of times we had to move me from a different training program to another, move me a different state. And at one point, send me to Australia where he's always watched my practice, morning and evening, whatever happens. He's even gotten off a surgery, but didn't come once, But when I went to Australia, he did not have the funds to come over there. So he realized, okay, in terms of a diet, let me send my wife, So he made that sacrifice of having to stay here and go there. But he understood what role that he needed to play in my life, At that point of time, I needed him more support. I was older. I was, close to 18. So I knew what I had to do. When I was younger, he had to literally handhold me, whether it's talking to the press after an event, what I can and can't say, how to manage my emotions. And none of this came naturally for him because he's not an athlete, which is why it's so impressive. And he was a huge sports fan. He still is, whether it's IPL, whether it's the World Cup, whether it's the Olympics. He loves to discuss it. He'll have it on Facebook. He'll be chatting with his friends about it. So it's great that he is so involved in sports. So I think he just believed that sports can take me so many places. I was actually a very quiet, timid kid growing up. And then he himself my parents saw how my demeanor changed, my confidence levels changed. So they always told me the day you want to quit, you can quit. So that's also something I think that parents forget to do. It's great to support your kids, but also give them that autonomy to say, I've had it with the sport, because it is very difficult being in any competitive sport. He always said, the day you want to quit, you can stop. So that gave me that, that confidence that, I'm in it because I love it. And when I don't want to do it, I don't have to do it anymore. And when I did take the call, in my early 20s, he was very upset, obviously, but it was my call and he let me. I feel a lot of parents push their kids into a sport that they don't love, or, push them beyond a level where maybe they've reached the max that they're going to do in this sport. So I think playing, it's a very tough balancing act. One is to actually listen to your kids. Do you really want to go to the Olympics, or do you want to do it every day but still do it for fitness? We have so many swimmers in my academy now whose parents have talked to them and the kids have said, I love it, I'll come every day, but I don't want to compete. And they're listening to them. But there's still some parents like, no, you try, don't worry, you can try and get it. The kids are not in it. So I think knowing when to push, when to back off, when to use your expertise, and also maybe your role changes over the years. So having that maturity to understand that, he definitely had that.
So you have a unique position right now because now you are also a parent,
yeah.
Right? So considering that perspective, and you said that that when parents treat into a line where their over obsession of a sport is pushing too much, and we have seen that also in elite sports. I mean, the stories we have read about Tiger Woods and all, where that also acts as it acts against the mental health, right?
Yeah.
Do you think? So I want to rewind back and say that when you were competing, was there a common pattern that all the other peer kids you had who were competing and training with you, was the pattern that their parents were also into sports and therefore that was a basic foundation for them to get into sports, or it was sheer, they were outlier, they had a talent and they got into it?
It is a mix of the two. You had some parents who realized, okay, the kid is good, but they would drop the kid in the pool and they knew nothing. Okay. Like if the child says the best timing, like, oh, okay, what was your earlier best timing? Whereas my father would have a book. This is her best time. This is the national record. So he was very organized. And to a level, he was also obsessed with the sport. He really loved the sport. There were other parents who kids still did well, but had absolutely no connection with the sport. But I think it helps you take you to that next level in terms of even worrying about something like you need to sleep early, you need to have the correct calories. So my mom and him were very good in terms of being a team. They kind of sheltered us, and in those days we needed that. We didn't even have access to the internet in those days, So when I remember when it did come out, being able to go online and check what do swimmers all over the world eat. Otherwise, it's just chatting with other swim moms, doing a lot of hard work. I feel now things are just handed to the parents on a platter. Like in my academy, even 10, 11, 12-year-olds, if they have weight issues, they can go to a nutritionist. We have a sports psychologist that works with our team. We have a strength and conditioning coach. So none of this was available. So I think it put so much more pressure on the parents and the ones who could bear with that. And it had nothing to do with money. I remember at one point, my dad was really struggling financially. He called up West Pace, Leander's dad, and uncle said, Aubrey, just have that sense of faith that it'll work out. He said, at one point before Leander made it big and won a, Olympic medal and then Wimbledon, he was actually like more than 1 crore in debt, Wow. And then after that, now, money is something he'll never have to worry about. And that's the least of his things. So he said, just stick to it. And that really helped give my dad that confidence. So speaking to whether it's Joshna Chinnappa's dad or whoever was there, they would talk, they would boost each other's morale, talking to the coaches. And, at one point I remember even my coach, my dad couldn't afford to send me for the world championships. Money was very tight. And my coach actually came forward and said, I'm paying for her, out of my own money. And this is, even though I'm going for the World Championships, the country is not paying. The Indian Olympic Association is not paying. The Swimming Federation is not paying. So my coach actually put that money in. And when I started working, I managed to repay him. So there are a lot of people, good, well-wishers, people who have done so much good and for no benefit of theirs, so that has really helped my career.
Yeah, I feel, when we celebrate a lot of athletes, sportsmen, these are these unsung heroes. We often don't come up. I mean, the dads, the coaches, people who help, because if it hadn't been them, we won't have that hero character today, right? Those days, and this is more of a selfish ask because I think when you're chasing, you don't know what you're chasing. It's that drive that you can do that better.
Yeah.
And the betterment is essentially coming from someone who's you going to compete with, and that's an unknown competitor, right? You certainly would have some goals, you have some milestones, right? Talk to me, how do you set those milestones at that level? Because I'm trying to connect the dot here, and life essentially is in a sense an endurance event, right?
Yeah.
Either you can look at a 50-kilometer way. I know you're a runner, so we'll talk about that. Or you can break it down at 5 kilometer to say, let's get the 10K done, then get to a half marathon, full marathon, 50K, right?
Yeah.
But when you're looking where the tangible aspects are not there, how do you kind of break down those goals? Because you don't know whether you will be a world champion or you don't know whether you're Olympic champions.
Yeah.
How do you break it down when the factors are beyond your control?
I think from a very young age, we started goal setting. And in those days, we were, old school. We had a diary. We wrote down our timings. And while from the beginning, I was very clear that Olympics was my goal. Like you said, it's so many years in the future. That was always my goal, to qualify for the Olympics. But I really did have a tough time first, just meeting goals on a regular basis, whether it's in practice. And people don't realize swimming is quite a lonely sport. As in, when you're actually swimming, you're underwater, it's pretty silent. You're training with the team, which really helps a lot. But at the end of the day, you're also racing on your own. It's an individual sport, so there are no goals. Like in a regular football practice, you might score a goal, you feel that sense of excitement. Swimming is just swimming up and down, following a black line on the bottom of the pool. So it takes a lot of mental strength, it takes a lot of conviction on your part, and keeping your mind focused on those goals. So for me, it was breaking it up into my short-term goals, which is like, end of this week, I have a time trial and my best time was this. I want to go a second or two faster. And I think as a swimmer, most athletes realize the importance of the fractions of a second. How much you have to work for 0.3 milliseconds or 0.5 milliseconds. And, things like not bunking workouts, putting in extra effort, missing out on the parties when you're teenagers, all those sacrifices. And, I have a friend called Aparna Popat. She talks about it really well. And she said, they're not sacrifices, they're choices that we make as athletes every day. We're not sacrificing anything, we make these choices. But I would make that choice to make sure I do whatever it takes to get to those goals, So if it comes to a point where I have to miss exams, I've done that to go for a big competition. So it is tough as a youngster to think that far ahead. So that's when your parents, your coach have a lot to do with it, keeping you focused on your goals. Definitely the teenagers was tough. We want to go out to meet some friends. My dad would feel bad and he'd say, fine, go, but party starts at 9, I'm coming to pick you up at 10. Now, you can't really do much in 1 hour, but I was happy. But I also knew my priorities going to the Olympics, not so much going for that party. So I would have these goals and I would slowly chip away at the goals. And I think the one time I got very disheartened was I was 14. I was already the national champion. And we have different events in swimming, butterfly, backstroke, different distances, 50, 800. So there were a couple of us who were national champions, but we all had an equal chance of qualifying for the Atlanta Olympics. And I was only 14. I was very, very enthusiastic. We went for our qualifying meets and nobody in India made it. So that itself was a disappointment, saying, okay, we didn't make the qualifying times. Then we suddenly heard, we presumed nobody's made it, nobody's going. Suddenly we heard that an American girl, her father is Indian, mother is American. She's born and brought up in America, never swum a competition here. We've never seen her before. She's come in, some money is exchanged hands, the usual thing. And she gets sent to the Olympics. And there are 3 or 4, not just me, there were 2 or 3 other girls, some older, who were reaching the peak of their career, who had narrowly missed the Olympic qualifying, who've been national champions for years, and we were not sent. So when my parents went to the federation and said, how could you send this girl? On what basis? Because she hasn't made the qualifying time either. They said, oh, your daughter has a lot of time. She's only 14. Of course, then the news came back that money changed hands. So my parents sat me down and said, listen, we are not paying any officials to send you to the Olympics. Either you qualify or you're not going to make it. This same thing will repeat 4 years from now. And up until that time, swimmers had only gone on a principle called universality, so that there's more participation worldwide. In those days, they needed it. So they would send 2, 1 male and 1 female from every country. And the federations it's up to them to decide who they send. So as a 14-year-old, it did hit me really hard. So you can either give up and say, this is not going to happen, or you can really kind of put everything you have. So I literally took that as a challenge and said, okay, I'm going to do this. So from 96 to 2000, I think was a very focused year. Like I talked about how much I love sugar. I remember the last 1 year leading up to my Olympic trials for the 2000 Olympics, I gave up sugar. I was in Australia, the middle of Easter, they extend over, cousins were bringing over Easter eggs and chocolate, had it all in a cupboard saying, no, I will not touch it. So I think that comes the point where you have to have maturity as an athlete. So it's not even about your age. I just turned 18. I was still the kid, just about becoming an adult. But that's when I think the athletes who really want it have like this laser like focus on their goal. And I was very clear that, okay, I've hit all my targets till now. I worked with a sports psychologist, which helped me tremendously. Like you talked about the mental element. Even my dad, who I always said knew how to push me, but obviously he's sitting in India. My mother's with me in Australia. I've got an Olympic qualifying event coming up. And, obviously his excitement and his nervousness was very palpable and was transferring to me, and I was getting very nervous. So that's when it helped speaking to a sports psychologist, working on the mental element a little more. And the small tweaks, whether it is, I was in Australia training on a scholarship. So whether it was monitoring your hydration, whether it was what kind of pasta should I eat with white sauce or tomato sauce, every small thing was monitored. So then you really got a chance to see how Olympic champions and world champions are made. It's all these small details, it's because otherwise we can take the workouts what the Australians are doing or the Americans are doing, but we're not able to replicate it. And so it was having this whole team of experts, keeping my mind focused on the goals and, kind of using that past upset of, missing out on the previous Olympics, taking that to heart and, using that in the race.
Yeah.
And so, the kind of feeling that you get when you actually qualify for an Olympics, that is like nothing else. Calling my dad in India, that's probably one of the highlights of my life, And at that point, I think you realize also you're older, you realize how much of money, effort, time your parents are putting, into your career. So calling him was one of the best moments, that was definitely my highlight of 2000.
Yeah, I mean, it goes to say that if you can't measure, you can't kind of achieve your goal. So I think and it comes, making sense a lot that you have a very large goal, but you have to kind of break it down to these small goals.
For me, at least, it helps.
It's a great manifestation to kind of break it down and internalize that that's what you're chasing for.
Yeah, because if you look at a Michael Phelps, when I say he sets goals like nobody else. In 2004, he won 1 gold. Now, for most people, that's a lot. He was just not happy. And from a very young age, he would write down his goal on a piece of paper, show it just to his mum and to his coach. So at that point of time, his coach was the famous Bob Bowman, who taught him from a very young age, coached him from a young age. And he told him, I want to be the greatest Olympian ever. And he actually wrote this down. I want to win 8 gold medals. Now, even to qualify for 8 medals as an American swimmer is insanely difficult. 2 or 3 events itself to represent the United States and the US is very tough. And the fact that he not only qualified, but he actually won those 8 medals with, the best athletes from all over the world. One medal was 0.01, 1 millisecond that he won one of the medals. So that's the kind of, I think the story of the moral of the story is how dreams, dreaming big. Like I mentioned, my goal was always to go to the Olympics, So when I was sitting at the 2000 Olympics at the opening ceremony, we have one of India's greatest sports people, which for me was just my teammate sitting next to me, Abhinav Bindra. We were the same age. We were both 18, so we were the youngest. And we were not chosen to walk in the parade. They had the Parade of the Nations, the march past. So we were allowed to go to the opening ceremony, but we couldn't march. We could watch the whole thing. So we were watching. And when the Olympic torch was being lit, I was in tears of joy, and I was so emotional. I was like, I've met my goal. I've reached it. And I remember looking at Abhinav, and he had a straight face, like no emotion. I just thought, okay, this fellow's a little weird, and I didn't really bother about it. Never asked him about it either. I was in my own happy world. And many years later, when he did come back and win that gold medal, and I met him and I said, I've always wanted to ask you, why was your face so, devoid of emotion? Why were you so focused? You're so serious. This is the Olympics. It was your first Olympics, especially. It's different if you've been there before. And he said, getting to the Olympics was not my dream. I said, so what was? Getting an Olympic gold. So now that I got this, you saw me smiling after my gold medal, I smiled. So just shows you, even between Abhinav and me, the difference in how I dreamt and how he dreamt, why he's Olympic champion and why I'm not. I got to the Olympics, yes, but my goal was never to win a medal. So at that point, I was like, yes, it's not that I didn't want to compete after that, but I was like, that is the kind of, that's what I thought I could achieve. So I think for the young generation, parents really need to encourage them that they can do anything. You want to be the president of India, we have a female president. You want to be an Olympic champion, you can do that. We have, so many girls out there. So to put that sense of belief that you can do everything. So that's something that I think was brought in at a very young age, both my sister and me. And it was great to have my sister as well in the sport, because it's kind of someone you can always talk to, lean on. And she went up to the world championships as well, but never got to the Olympics. But she was, I think, my biggest cheerleader
Wow.
at the same
And
time.
it's interesting you said, the two goals. I like an athlete saying, I want to represent the country in Olympics, that participate, and I want to win the Olympics, right? That might sound two very diverse set of goals, but I'm sure from a training perspective, do you see mentally and physically the training itself foundationally are very different, or is it just how you're geared mentally in terms of your goal?
Yeah, I think it's about how much are you willing to give up. Like I mentioned, how much I gave up. Again, I'll go back to Michael Phelps only because he is the greatest Olympian. We would train morning and evening, 6 days a week. So we do a max of 12 sessions in a week. And that's a lot. And nowadays, there's more quality than quantity. But in our days, this is what we would actually commit. And this was world over. So in 2004, when Michael Phelps wrote those goals down and showed it to his coach, he said, how are we going to get these 8 goals? Because everyone's training as hard as you. He's like, I'm going to train harder. He said, how? He's like, I'm going to train every single Sunday when my opponents are resting, I'm going to be training. So the difference between him and the others, it could be that 0.01 difference, is that every single week, he did 7 days a week when his competitors were doing 6. So that is what got him that 0.01 of a difference. Unless he was sick, he was in the pool, he was training. So like I said, it has to be almost like an obsession. We are passionate about it, but it has to be obsessive. Otherwise, you're not going to get to the top. The only issue with that is when you stop competing, and I'm sure you've seen this with many other sports people. There's a sense of loss. So many top athletes, especially Olympic champions, go through a sense of depression. They don't know where their life is going. A lot of them take to drugs or alcohol, or they just kind of don't have any goals. Because so used to setting goals, this one goal that you had is no longer there. You've achieved it, or you haven't achieved it. And then what do you do after this? You quit your sport. So I think that was the biggest journey for me post my swimming career about, who am I as a person? And maybe being not as obsessed as somebody like an Abhinav Bindra, it helped me in some ways. So for a lot of older athletes who I speak to and mentor across sports, I always tell them to have other interests, to have, a degree, to have education to fall back on, to have friends who you still keep in touch with. Yes, you will. Athletes are very self-centered. You have to be. You have to worry about yourself. I'm the most important. I need to sleep. I need to eat. I'm hungry. Give me food. I have a competition. I can't join you. I have to sleep early. So at some point, you have to realize that there is life after sport. So that is something that, really intrigued me over the last few years. And I kind of delved deeply into that in the COVID years.
So this, as you speak, trying to draw parallels to an athlete and perhaps an athlete with white collar.
Yeah.
That's someone who goes 9 to 6 and works in a certain IT or non-IT company.
Yeah.
This thing about balancing, like you said, they are so obsessed that they would have that repercussion once they're done competing.
Exactly.
And I see that a lot in the athletes of white collar doing that. There is a formative years, as they say, that you're at peak, so you have to really hustle. You have to kind of burn the midnight oil. You're working more than 20 hours a day, not sleeping, and you're boasting the fact that you're not sleeping and you have a non-sleep streak, all of that. But then very soon you burn out. And now we see those episodes of burnout and depression and mental health. And I'm relieved in the sense that there's a common parallel. That's what an athlete goes through, and that's what a non-athlete is also going through. Since you're off that mode right now, and now you're also an entrepreneur, do you think there is an arc which is possibly a balance, that while being balanced, you can perform and then you can also have a longevity towards it? Because
definitely.
I'm yet to meet even an athlete or someone who has perhaps performed at a high level throughout life.
Yeah.
It's never happened, right?
Never,
But has there been a possibility? Outliers are there. There could be only one Phelps, there could be one Michael Jordan, but or one Sachin Tendulkar. But is there a possibility that you can balance and you can also have an longevity towards whatever you're doing?
Definitely. I think the average person who's not a pro athlete maybe will understand and value, or has been grown up with the whole idea of having rest and recovery, which is something, unfortunately, as athletes in those days, especially, I'm talking about, early 2000, the 90s, it was like you're not doing something, then you're resting. That's not good. You're not being productive. So that drove me so much, even as an entrepreneur, when I started my business, or as a mom initially. But I think just maturity, time has made me understand, like you said, now that I run my own business, I'm a mom of twins. I have my own schedule. I do different sports, whether it's CrossFit, whether it's running. I realized that I don't have to push to that level. I set myself a little more realistic goals. I'm not aiming to get to Boston. I know I think I understand as an athlete how much that will take. And I don't want to give that much right now. I want to have that balance where I can still go and meet friends for a drink, maybe miss a morning session, because at the end of the day, I'll still do well. I could look at PBs. So I think moderation is something the average person would be able to get much easier. So that will really help you stay in the game longer if you can make sure that you stay away from injuries, you're resting and recovering well. And nowadays, even in terms of hydration and nutrition, so much more is known. It's all accessible. The same, supplements that an athlete, pro athlete is taking, you can take it to perform better. So make use of that. If you have the money and you have the capability of, bringing that in, use everything you can. But at the same time, know the fact that you have a life as well. Athletes really don't have a life. So never ever compare yourself. Like I don't compare myself to an 18-year-old me, who had six-pack abs, was swimming 16 kilometers a day, 6 days a week. And in some ways, I'm much stronger. Mentally, I'm much stronger right now. I've been through a lot in my life. I've been through ups and downs. And, I couldn't do a pull-up, even though I went to the Olympics. And I got my first pull-up at the age of 39. So there's still things that you can do when you're older, but your priorities have to change. So I'd say one is, you have to prioritize your life. You have to be, I'm not saying organized. I don't say every minute doesn't have to be, scheduled. But I think for me, I've noticed in the last 4 to 5 years how much my goals have changed. When I was a young mom, it was just about keep my children alive, keep them well fed, keep them safe. And my health and my wellness went to zero. And you'll think that, but you're an Olympian, but no, it's as tough for me or maybe tougher. I was 90 kgs from 56, where I've been all my life eating whatever I want. I reached 90. I remember, since you're a runner, you know about the Pinkathon races where, all the women are encouraged to go in. So Milind Soman, who's also, not many people know him apart from his modeling and the Pinkathon, but he's actually one of India's top swimmers. He had the national record. So he called me for an event. I was at my most unhealthy and my fattest at that point. And he called me for an event to encourage other women to do the Pinkathon. And he saw me, and sometimes you need that person to kind of wake you up, And he just said, "Oh my God, what happened to you?" He was to my face. He's never met me before. I've heard of him. He's heard of me. And he said, "This is ridiculous, Nisha. What's wrong with you?" So I said, "Oh, I had twins." "How old are they?" "That past a year." "So what's stopping you from getting back to your fitness? Nobody's asking you to compete, but don't you want to be fit? Sign up for the Pinkathon, And I was like, okay. I was so nervous. My self-confidence had gone down. So it takes that one or two people to be a little harsh with you, to push you out of your comfort zone. I had slipped back into my comfort zone. And that was started like a long journey of refining myself as an ex-athlete or a recreational athlete, what that kind of meant. So for a while, it was about losing weight. Then when I started losing weight, it was about, oh, wow, I can do so much more with my kids. I can run after them. And trust me, when you have twins, they're running in different directions. So you really have to be fit. And then finally, I'm like, wow, I love the feeling of this. And I'd missed competing so much. That I started enjoying CrossFit, which is why I do 6 days of CrossFit now. Whenever I get the time, it's non-negotiable for me. First of all, I think as an athlete, we are used to our schedules. We will wake up, when my alarm clock wakes up, it's not something that comes naturally for everyone. But my best tip for you is get out of bed. When your alarm goes off, get out of bed, because once you decide to lie down or press that snooze button, it's very tough.
You're done. Yeah.
I will first get out of the bed and brush my teeth. It's like I'm a robot. I've done this for so many years. It came very naturally for me to do that. And then when you do that, you realize, okay, I'm awake. I might as well just go ahead and do it. So for me, it worked that starting my day with some kind of exercise really sets me up, I feel, to be a better person, a better mom, better entrepreneur. So I like to get my exercise in the morning. And I also understand that it doesn't always happen. My husband wants to go out on a fishing trip and he's like, I need my time off. At that point of time, I have to give up on my morning schedule, drop my kids to school, get them ready. Normally he does that. And I figure it out and go later. Or if I don't go, it's not the end of the world. So that has only come with maturity over the last, I think, 10 years. So being a mom, being a parent really helps, because at the end of the day, your children are important. But I've seen the impact, the positive impact of my kids knowing that I'm serious about my health. Whether it's, they're like, you've got blisters on your hands. Yeah, but I'm getting stronger. So when they started working out in the gym, they come and show me very proudly, see, I have blisters on my hand. It's like a moment of pride. It's not like, whether it's getting tanned, this is such a cliche in India. Yeah. Oh, if you swim, you'll get tanned. My kids love it. They're like, oh, wow, we're tanned. It means that we're putting in hours in the pool. So I think it's about opening our children's eyes, the new gen, showing them that sports has a lot to bring you. But at the same time, I think, especially post-COVID, I found this huge trend now where adults of all ages are taking to fitness, not just swimming. I mean, swimming, I can talk directly about it, but across all sports, whether it's getting into running, whether it's buying a cycle and then getting out there and doing cycle rides, fitness has now been prioritized. People realize you can have all the money and the power and the job titles that you want or the wealth, but your health is most important. And one of the best ways to do it and the most fun way is to get into sports. So my, my advice to everyone is, just like an ex-athlete itself finds it difficult, an ex-Olympian finds it difficult to get back, it is going to be tough. You're going to have bad days. First of all, get some good friends, get a group to train with. There's nothing like it. I mentioned swimming being an individual sport, but I would not have finished those workouts without my team. Whether it was, just lamenting about how tough the workouts are or having a meal after. That's what sports really unites people. And you'll see this across all sports. And the fact that now we have access to so much equipment, better playgrounds, there is no excuse. If you say, people call me and say, but I'm overweight. I'm like, you can find a swimsuit that will cover you up. No, but I'll get tanned. So swim morning or evening. So there's no excuses. So you are the ones putting these kind of barriers to yourself. I have a tough job. How are some of the top CEOs of, Fortune 500 companies, so many of them who I know well, how are they able to maintain, these companies, their hectic work life and still find time for exercise? You will find time if it's on your priority list. So I think every year, reassess. Instead of having these New Year resolutions, I would say write out what your list of priorities is for the year. I know last year, a lot of my priority was getting my business back on track post-COVID. So work took the precedent. And of course, my family and work was, on number one. This year, it's more about, getting to a point where work can be done with other people, can also take a little bit more of that work, the burden off of me. I want to spend more time getting my kids. They're really showing a lot of interest. Like how I told my parents I want to do competitive swimming. They're doing that now to me, and as tough as it is, I'm realizing, okay, which is my more important role, me as a mom or me as an entrepreneur. But, I can have experts, somebody who's handling admin better, probably do a better job than I will, but I can't replace not only a mom, but somebody who has experience in that very sport, So I do take the time off, put off my computer, get to the pool. I play the mom role, the sports mom. I'm also realizing, I think you have that sense of gratitude for your parents, for the people who contributed, whether it's a coach, who put in that kind of effort. So it's nice to be on the other side, So it's a great revelation for me, especially when my kids grow up now, me having to, not put my goals on them, because for me it was very clear I want to go to the Olympics. One of my daughters, and they're twins, they're exact same age, they look the same, they are same height, same weight. One of them is very aggressive like me, like she wants to beat everyone, she wants to race, she wants to compete. And then the other one is like, everybody, let's make friends. I got the medal, but you're looking sad, take my medal. And it's so tough for me as this competitive person. Like, no, you do not give away medals because you earned it. Let them earn it. But that's her personality, So that's the biggest struggle for me right now, to disconnect the competitive part of me and the mom part of me, which is very different. I'm not being like that strict with my kids. Of course, they're only 9. Maybe at a point when they are older and they're competitive and they can handle it, I'll do that. So that's the tough part for me.
No, you saved a ton of my time, because I was about to ask you to draw parallels between the Olympian to your mom and entrepreneur, and you kind of summed it beautifully well. I think the lens, I think in a to an extent, people have this feeling that, look, when you're competing at a very high level, especially in sports, you're superhuman. But this only says that you're human, right? I mean, even athletes would have the hard time.
Correct.
That's exactly what someone else at home or at work is having. And these are essentially playbooks which you guys have to figure it out, what works, what doesn't work for each of you, and then kind of, experiment and implement it. And it's so heartening to see that you've tried so many times and you're connecting the dots. I mean, there's a struggle being a parent, a mother. There's a struggle being an entrepreneur. Those are things which you were not taught in any academy or any B school. But I think those formative years, because you've been a pro at an age where people don't even know what pro means,
Exactly.
right? I mean, what you retired at the age of 24.
Yeah,
That's where
22
people
actually,
22.
yeah.
That's where
Close to 24 when I fully stopped.
yeah, that's an age where people start becoming or start telling themselves they are professional,
Yeah.
right? And you
Yeah.
retired by then, right? So no, that's impressive. I mean, and what I'm getting is that those many years beyond being an athlete taught you a lot of playbooks which you are now able to implement. And that's what I mean, that's the idea of having this conversation, is to urge people, it's still not too late. I mean, you could have that element of sport in your life, be that in the early part of your career, mid or later, because there's something beyond just that fitness element which it helps you. And I was trying to make those mental notes, what you're saying, time management, personal goals, being very reasonable, right?
Even working in a team, nowadays kids are so, I feel, indulged in their house. Parents don't have time. So learning to be part of a team, whether it's getting bullied a little bit by the seniors, learning to, put your needs second, put the team's need first. And like you said, this is why, even I've called to so many corporates to give motivational talks. And, I've never been in a corporate setting. As when I retired, I decided I want to, start my own coaching academy. And it was very difficult. So I had zero skill. Luckily, met my husband. I mean, at that point, I was dating him, but now he's my husband. And he helped me set up in terms of the back end. But literally learned through experience, not from going to a B school, but still run a very successful company for the last 20 plus years now. But what I would say is, when I talk to most people, I tell them the same thing, that you'll literally get 2 or 3 Olympians. But the kind of lessons that sports can teach you are, it cannot be matched.
Absolutely.
Whether it's, treating everybody equal, not ever giving up, learning to, overcome success. So I think where that showed me the difference between athletes and non-athletes, and when I say athletes, I use it in a larger sense, not just pro athletes. Like, I think so many amateur athletes that I met, and you're a runner, and you know how much passion there is in the running community in Bangalore. I love it. You'll have more dedication sometimes from a 50-year-old who has a very tough job, who has kids at home. Then you will see from a competitive athlete who's 18, who's given everything on a plate. Her parents have the funding, you're getting scholarships. So it's all about your attitude, how you can deal with it. But sports teaches you so much. And in COVID, I realized that really helped me. At that point, there was no, I was just drawing off my years of experience, the lessons that I've learned. At one point, we had been closed for almost a year and a half. Swimming pools were the first to close and the last to open. So my role as an entrepreneur, somebody who's leading my organization, and my husband is not a pro athlete. So I see it first in him, where he was struggling a lot to keep that faith. I think we should just get regular desk jobs. What are we going to do to provide? We should stop the academy. There's no sense of security in this, like swimming, especially. Other sports, some of the other sports, you could do online classes. We couldn't do that in swimming. And I had to be like, no, we will get through this. We've gone through hard times before. We can do so. I think as an athlete, I think that sense of resilience, persistence, not giving up, not taking no for an answer. I mean, it could go to the flip side where it's not a great quality. But in certain situations where your back is against the ropes, you really feel like you're at the bottom. And we were certainly at the bottom. To have that courage, that vision that, no, we will get through this. So that really comes from sports. So that's why I keep telling parents, put your kids in as many sports as you can. They learn so many, like my kids don't do only swimming. They do CrossFit, they do a little bit of running. The idea is that you learn so many different, lessons that cannot be replaced. Having a coach, dealing with a coach, like even part of being a leader is also being led to be a good student yourself. So I would learn from my coaches, and some of them are not great, so I don't know how I don't want to be. So I think about all those bad coaches who are, in those days, very physically abusive. They would slap swimmers, stamp our hands when we were holding the edge of the pool. So when I started my own academy, I thought back and I said, I don't want to ever be like that. I don't want to turn kids away from the pool. At the same time, there were mentors of mine, like my coach, Pradeep Kumar. He was one of India's top coaches, and he helped bring so many Olympians, Arjuna Awardees to this country. And then now he's training a team in Dubai. But even small things like having discussions with him, arguments with him. Like once I had finished going to the Olympics, and at that point I was at somebody who's achieved the highest at that pool. And we had a small intra-club competition. We had 800 swimmers in the pool I was training at. He was the head coach. And he said, how we have our sports days, we'll put all of you into different houses. So red, green, blue, yellow, and we'll have a fun competition. Everyone's excited. And we go up to, and he said, okay, so red house, it'll be so-and-so. He names a boy as a captain and then Nisha as vice captain. So I just said, why am I vice captain? He's like, all the boys are captains and the girls are vice captains. I said, why? Then he didn't know what to do. He just automatically presumed, okay, they'll put a boy as a captain and a girl. I said, make us co-captains. I have gone to the Olympics. I have more experience. I can encourage the kids more. I gave him a full list of things, I'm not saying I want to be the captain. I want to be the co-captain, and then it was a learning experience for him. And later on, he told me, like, you coming in as an, 20-year-old saying, this is what I want. This is my right, and I had not even thought about it. Something simple like that. I think we need nowadays, if you know the new generation, they're very outspoken. We've made them that way. Sometimes I wonder why I made my kids so outspoken. But they're more willing to ask for what they want, which is a great quality to have. So sports can only encourage that. And what it really does, I feel the most, is the sense of confidence, the sense of, the mental health. When we were stuck at home, I think everyone remembers how that felt. It felt horrible. I remember during COVID when we had like a 20 day, I got my whole family up and walking. I have my Garmin on, started tracking our steps, and we just walked from the back door of our house to the kitchen door, till we finished 1 kilometer, just to get everybody moving, because otherwise you're just lying there, watching TV, eating some food. I was like, let's just get our body moving. So movement is so very important. It can be at your level, at your pace. No one needs to be doing 6 days. Like, my body is used to it. I can do 6 days of CrossFit a week, or, but if you're happy with those 2 days of exercise, if that's what you can fit into your lifestyle, if that's what brings you happiness, great. But there's no reason why you should be. I mean, I've seen 70-year-olds coming in to learn swimming, saying, I want to do something, I have bad knees, the doctor said I can swim. They're bringing their friends who are 70. So if 70-year-olds can do it, there should be no excuse, So stop finding excuses and go out there, take that risk, that sense of vulnerability of, I may not be good at it, but let me just try it. I can't cycle till today, and I train some of the top triathletes in the country, but I can't cycle myself. So getting back on a cycle, I think I last cycled when I was 4 or 5. And then I got back on it when I was 40. We went for a holiday. My husband said, come on, there's a cycle. Just go. We're in a resort. Nobody's going to come and bang into you. Even that sense of taking that little step to get into something different, push yourself into that out of your comfort zone, I would say. That's what sports does for you. So that's why everyone should have some element of sports in their life.
I feel, absolutely can't, it's gem of stuff, because I feel playing sport is a superpower.
Yeah.
What it can offer you is way beyond just the fitness part of it.
Correct.
Because the intangible part is exactly like you said, the resilience, the grit, the determination.
And mental health, so intrinsically tied to physical health.
And also, one thing, very ignored and salient part is accepting failure.
Yeah.
Right? Because as a society, we are constantly taught to cheer for success.
Yeah.
And we are always incentivized for success.
Yeah.
But playing sports tell you that, okay, you failed today, you'll come back and you probably have your day.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm sure 9 out of 10 instances you're failing, and only on the 10th instance you probably get to the podium, right? So those are things which are very hard to kind of pick it. How was it? So at the age of 18, you won Arjuna Award,
yes.
Right? What did you do first when you were like 5 feet away from the President of India?
I think those are the moments that you'll remember forever. It's not really, and in those days, none of us got any endorsement deals. We never looked forward to those things. But when you get an invite to Rashtrapati Bhavan, you get a parking pass, you go in for your, you have a trial, a whole preparation the day before. We run through the entire ceremony. And at that point, I was only 18. They give you very strict instructions. There's a small square, like a carpet, which is laid there. So when we call your name, come and stand on the carpet. Don't make any sudden movements. It's the President of India sitting in front of you. Look down at the floor. Only when they call your name, go up to greet him. So it was quite nerve-wracking. And I was telling my parents, we managed to fly down my coach so he could also be there. And I was only 8. I think I was the youngest of the group at that point. Gopi Chand also was getting it at the same time as me. Jeev Milkha Singh's son, who's a golfer. So we were all excited, talking about it. And then the next day when the big moment came, they called my name. I went up to stand on the carpet. And then, I was so curious and so excited that I looked up, not supposed to even look up when they were reading out my achievements. And and I smiled at the president. He smiled at me. So I was like, wow. And then I started doing this. And he waved back at me. And people behind him, the security, are like, no, stop, But I was like, hey, this is like my moment, So I think this is also the great part about being young and getting this award. Not really realizing maybe the significance of the moment, So I was so excited, like, wow, the president of India just waved at me. So later when we all get our awards, then the president leads the process, leads the whole congregation of athletes around the room. And I jumped out of the, queue and I said, I don't remember what I think I said, sir, I said, this is my mom and dad. And he shook my parents' hands, So it was just the fact that I think these moments, you understand when they say why you compete for your country. The fact that you're wearing the Indian tracksuit and you hear the national anthem playing and you have tears in your eyes. So that's what sports is all about, which is why sometimes when I see sports becoming so overly hyped and, so commercial, I feel like maybe in some ways we've lost the true essence of sports. But then when I see a Neeraj Chopra, a small town boy with big dreams, winning the heart of, billions, where everybody actually stayed up and watched a Neeraj Chopra win. And if there was a cricket match, they actually put that off and changed the channel. That brings so much of joy to me. So I think the best part about it was the Arjuna Award understood that the country values you, even as an 18-year-old being selected, getting this award. It's so important. So I'm part of the Arjuna Award committee. So that's one thing. Whatever I'm doing, I drop. When they call you to Delhi, I go for it because I understood what a big impact it made for me. And that Arjuna Award sits very proudly in my house. Everything else is in my parents' house. But that one award, my mom said, now you have your own house, you should have it. So my kids have now slowly started to understand, like, oh, this is mom's Olympic medallion. So it's more about what all it took to get there, those few memories.
Yeah.
And we don't even have too many video footage of those days, but there's a photo of me smiling, so excitedly shaking the president of India's hand. So those are moments that are irreplaceable.
Yeah.
And no amount of funding and, sponsorships would have made me feel that way. Like, it's great. It would have maybe prolonged my career, but that's why athletes do what they do. So, it's good to see our athletes nowadays. They are getting the funding, but a lot of them are still focused. You have a Sindhu who said no to so many endorsement deals. I want to focus on winning my medals. You have so many athletes coming back into the sport. So I think it's that passion for sport that's within us that needs to just be taken to the next level. We have the talent. We've seen that.
Yeah.
And, events like the Arjuna Award just, are a lot of culmination of hard work. There's still so many athletes who maybe missed out, who are just as good. So, in the future, we're hoping that all these athletes get these honors.
So, as you were speaking about the highs in life, right? I feel the athlete life and a non-athlete life in that sense is kind of, opposite directions because let's accept most of the athletes get in their peak career in the early part of their career. And for someone else who's not an athlete, you are actually chasing the peak.
Yeah.
You only get, a peak as you age, right? Now, in your case, in situations, since you've had those high moments, I'm sure, you're having fun time being an entrepreneur mom, but perhaps you won't be getting those moments right now. What's behind you, right?
Yeah.
How do you balance that? I mean, because the reason I'm saying that those highs are past you.
Yes.
Right. Does it still? I don't know. I mean, is it still come back and haunt that you don't have those highs, or how do you make peace with it?
I think more than haunt, I mentioned I'm very competitive. So more than winning, I want to compete. Like, I enjoy that, like my adrenaline going up, being nervous before an event, pushing yourself to the limit. That's what I miss most about competitive sports. So it's about, can you replicate something in your normal life,
No.
Because physically I'm not at my prime. I'm very strong. I do a lot of things, but I'm not at where I was. And maybe you won't get the same kind of a feeling of meeting a president of India. But at the same time, my kid's being born, or seeing your kid or one of your swimmers who is training in your academy win, it's a different kind of high. So one, I think, is to inculcate the sense of gratitude. They have that sense of gratitude, which is a little lacking, I feel, in the newer generation. I keep talking to a lot of sports people about this, like, oh, I didn't win this, I didn't win that. I'm like, but aren't you happy that you're able to do something you love? You're physically fit. So I think thinking about, do I have, physically, mentally, am I healthy? Am I happy? I think I chase those sense of high in different ways. But I also find that, wow, I don't have to be on all the time. That is one problem as a sports person. You always have to have your guard up. You need to be resting well. Every moment of your life is measured, tracked, monitored. So that's the one thing I'm enjoying about not being there. yes, it's difficult to replicate, going to the Olympic ceremony. So if you see me during the Olympics, I'm like a big mess. I'll be crying, and I'll be like, oh my God, I'm so happy. Like it's reminded me of those days. But at the end of the day, everything, there's always like the reason people can't let go of their old self is why they have an issue transitioning into this new self. So for me, a lot of it was working on mental health for myself. And I always thought, oh wow, I'm emotionally, mentally very strong. I always thought of it as physical strength, mental strength, and I had both. So I was like, I'm set, and a lot of athletes think this. And then I went through a lot of different things, different moments in my life. My dad having a very serious issue where for the last 10 years he's been in a wheelchair, not being able to move fully. I realized that emotionally I was not very strong. And a lot of that has to do with being an athlete and being like, I can handle everything. I don't need help. Like I can do everything. I'll be fine. You put me on the blocks, I'll win. But then moments in time where you can't do anything, where you're helpless, and then how do you deal with it? Not asking for help, not learning how to rest. Whereas so many times I was burnt out, pushing myself. So this athlete mentality of, okay, this coach has not come, I'll do his classes. Instead of cancelling it, I'll do it.
So is it like, sorry, what I'm trying to say that you've been taught not to be vulnerable.
Yes, exactly. Vulnerability is very tough and so nice to see now, whether it's Sakshi Malik or, any of our athletes saying, I have mental health issues, I'm going to pull out of the competition. Simone
Biles.
Biles said, I'm at the Olympics. I'll take part in the team. I'm not in a mental frame of mind to do the Olympics. So that takes so much of maturity. I think Vinesh Pogod or something as well had this issue with mental health and we talk about it. We never talked about mental health, about being weak. We looked at it and we were taught in those days that if you talk about being weak, your opponents will prey on it. You lose the races. You won't be mentally tough. But the emotional needs of athletes are not really met. So in 2020, when COVID hit, for a while, I was trying to figure out what to do. I mean, I enjoyed spending time with my family. I remember one time my daughter said something like, I'm so happy for COVID. I said, what do you mean? People are dying. People are getting sick. People are losing their jobs. She said, yeah, but I get to spend every day with you all the time. You don't have to go to work. So then you understand from a kid's point of view, this is the best time of their lives. They're spending the whole day with their parents. And I also found that, okay, I've not really worked on the emotional strength, which I really was not emotionally strong. Mentally, I'm strong. I can still go out and win a competition. Physically, I'm strong, but it's something I hadn't worked on. So even the fact I used to talk very fast, even faster than this. And when I started talking to a counselor, I actually signed up for a counseling course to become a counselor myself. But a lot of that is actually more self-work. More than learning how to counsel others, you do so much of self-work. I wasn't really expecting it. But even the fact that when I started talking to my own counselor, she'd say, see, you're talking about something that really stresses you out and go back and listen to the recording. Your voice just sped up. Your tone of voice, you got higher. You started speaking so fast, I couldn't even understand you. You don't pause at all. So even when you're, counseling somebody else, when I would do my counseling sessions, she said, you're asking all the right questions. You're not giving them time. So we were never taught to rest, to pause, to reflect, So those are things that I'm really struggling with now, but I've improved a lot, I would say. And to give myself permission to chill out and do nothing. That is not something from my age of 9 where other kids maybe could do it. A lot of people who are in sports or are pursuing some other thing, after they come back from school, they have those moments of rest. We didn't have that. It is school to work, to swimming, back to sleep. Your schedule is very set. So now I actually given myself some time to if I want to just chill out and put off my phone and Netflix and chill, or even tell my kids, they're old enough now. At one point I couldn't do it, but now I just say, listen, go serve yourself. The food's on the table. You guys are old enough. I'm going to just watch some TV or I'm just going to relax and read a book. Even to say that, I think I was, as athletes, we're taught to be always on. So that is the biggest learning, which I'd say this is the new phase. This is the more mature me. Yeah. So when I tell my friends, they have a good laugh because I would be like, why are you sitting around? Do something. Now I'm the one who's saying I'm valuing this silence, which I talk a lot, as you can tell.
Yeah.
And even sometimes I need my silence with very noisy kids. Running a business, so I sometimes take that time off. For me, silence could be going for a run in the morning, which is what I love about running. Or it could be getting back to reading, which I really enjoyed. Or just listening to some music that calms me down. So that, I think, has helped me be less anxious. A lot of self-care, everyone talks about it. But things that athletes we're not taught to do. Yeah. So part of me doing this counseling course is to tell athletes, current athletes, that there's life outside sport. There's emotional maturity that you have to get. You can ask for help. And it's not just me. A lot of people, a lot of sports psychologists are doing good work. We tell our athletes, even if you're going through some personal issues, might be a problem with your mom or dad or a boyfriend, you need to talk to someone. So mental health, I think, is the need of the hour more than anything else, which is why sports helps it, yes. But mental health also, we need to start talking about it. And when you hear, say, a Virat Kohli or a Leander Paes saying something about I wasn't, or even a Michael Phelps talking about I was depressed and I struggled with it. I still struggle. I still go meet a counselor. Then they're like, oh wow, these guys who are on our, on our profile as our picture, we're looking up to them. There are idols. Even they struggle with mental health. They go to a sports psychologist or to just a regular psychologist. It makes such a big difference. So I think there's a huge movement now. Like there was the Me Too movement. There's a huge mental health movement about self-care. No, I'm not mentally ready to do this competition. Or even if it's an amateur athlete thinking, maybe I've taken on too much, maybe I have to cut back somewhere. Something has to give. So it all comes back for me to saying no. That is my biggest. So my 2023 goal, like my was to learn to say no.
Yeah, I mean, interesting, right? I mean, so my biggest learning as being a recreational runner is that your rest and the recovery day is the most important day of your training.
Yes, yeah.
We often feel that if we are resting, I mean, like you said, we spoke about Michael Phelps, where perhaps he's doing it every day, but it's an outlier.
It's not sustainable.
It's not sustainable, right? But if you can only rest and recover, only then your body mentally and physically is geared enough to go out and perform. Now, whether you're in sports or at work or at home or elsewhere. Now, I'm also a very recent parent, a 2-year-old son, and I just realized the importance of rest and recovery, because it's unimaginable in terms of the energy what you have got as from toddler to infant. And I'm kind of, between me and my wife, I've been constantly saying that, okay, maybe in another 6 months it will get better, but it just gets worse.
It gets different.
Right? Yeah, it's because
always
it's hard.
tough. Yeah,
so as the child is growing up, it's even hard and challenge to keep up with them.
Yeah.
And that 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night is perhaps where we feel that the world is at peace, because the rest, what
silence,
you get, the silence is, undervalued. I mean, it's priceless,
Definitely.
right? So, I mean, we live in a world, like you said, where, all those trends were over celebrated, and these aspects were kind of not spoken much. And it's glad that that aspect has been spoken of, because it's super hard.
Yeah.
And the topic of no, I mean, very recently, and between us, a common person we can talk about is Eliud Kipchoge. And on a recent interview, he said that one of the most important supplements he has taken in his life is vitamin N. And when the guy asks what's vitamin N, says the ability to say no.
No, yeah.
Right? Because that gives you that power to do a lot of things which others are not able to do, because when you're constantly exposing yourself to everything around you, you are expending all that energy what you've got, ideally, which has to be kind of manifested in one direction. I really hope people take that cue, especially coming not just from an Olympian but also a mother of two.
I think women, especially in India, don't say no enough. They put themselves last. So whenever I go to any talk, whether it's a sports day, whether it's a corporate, I always tell them that unless you are physically and mentally healthy, you will not do a good job of being a parent, a wife, a daughter. And we play so many roles that we put everybody else ahead. So at some point, you have to prioritize yourself. However small that, whether it's half an hour, 1 hour, everyone has different circumstances, no doubt. But I think Indian women have to learn to say, no, I can't be everything for everyone all the time. And, we have to just take time out to chill, to relax, to go to, it could be different. Go shopping, go for a manicure, read a book, go for a class, whatever it is that makes you happy. So I think people need to get back to it, especially women, because they're trying to do too many things. And burnout is so real, right? You see it in terms of, even if you want to be better at everything, whether it's career, whether it's your personal life, rest and recovery, like you said, prioritizing, saying no. I still have a tough time. Like for the longest time, if you call me on the phone and I wanted to say no, if I don't know who you are, I would use like a name. I would say, my name is Spandana. So Spandana would very easily say no, but Nisha wouldn't be able to say no. Only recently I've stopped that, saying, no, I can't do this. I don't have the time. I don't have the, I don't want to do this right now. Even now, I still tend to give a justification. I'm sorry, I can't do this because of this. So I'm still working on saying no and not giving a reason. Your time is your time and you need to really protect it. So when my kids sometimes, my kids are at this wonderful age, but very naughty age, where they've realized how important, how easy it is to manipulate
They've hacked
the
your
parents.
system.
Yeah, they've hacked, they know all the things. There are two of them, so like tag team, and they come and they'll
And
say,
they're trading
"Fine."
notes with each other.
Yeah,
You do this, I
definitely.
will
And they
do this.
always have each other back, and they're twins. There's always a special bond. They're not identical twins, but still, they'll come to me and find like, why don't you not go for class today? I'm like, no, I've committed to a class. I'm teaching these kids. I want to make sure I go for the class. Fine, be with your swimming kids, not your real kids. So it's I think like a balancing act still, how much to give in to them and say, yes, okay, I need to spend time with you. But also the fact that to show them the value of work, that I'm building something on my own. Nobody's helped me. I don't have funds. We've started this from scratch, like me going, apartment to apartment. Now we managed to grow it to a big team. And it's something that I will hand over to them. If one of them wants to continue the academy, it's their legacy that I want to, it's the legacy that I'm building. So it's a very fine balancing act. And like you said, every age, every stage is very challenging. I know they're going into the teens in a couple of years. That's going to be a good fun,
I know, I'm sure.
fun time. But I feel like if they're involved in sports, it makes so much of my job easier.
Yeah.
A lot of that extra energy, those teenage hormones, all those things are taken care of automatically in any kind of sport, whether it's a team or individual sport, So I was lucky that I had to go through that. I didn't have time to drink. I know that if I have 1 or 2 drinks extra as a teenager, I would not be able to get up in the morning. My parents would stop me from swimming. So that was my biggest fear, that I want to be swimming. Let me not smoke or drink. So I never touched a cigarette, like till date. So I think those good habits people need to get into. I know so many people who have quit smoking because they started swimming. They'd say, why do I struggle with breathing? I can't seem to take a deep enough breath. And these are people in their 50s, 60s. And everybody has their insecurity. I remember teaching Nandan Nilekani. He's one of my first students. But this is many, many years ago before my kids. And two lessons I learned from him. One is somebody who is that high in terms of being an achiever. He would call personally. Once he called me and he had just learned to breathe, do his side breathing. So I was like, wow, I'm going to make Nandan Nilekani do this in the next session. And then he called me and said, personally, he could have made his PA call me. He called me and said, Nisha, I won't be able to make it for class. And I said, why not? He's like, I've got a very important meeting. I'm like, come on, Nandan, you're just getting there. And then he's like, it's actually the president of India. So I was like, oh my God, then you realize that people are not giving, invalid excuses. Somebody like him also, I remember him telling me that I've done so much, I've achieved so much, but physically I feel like I'm at zero. I need to really build up. And then, he really took his health seriously. So I see this from achievers across the spectrum, whether it's sports or CEOs or an actor or an actress or whoever, is the fact that they're able to be more vulnerable now, admit where their weaknesses are, work on it, realize that they can't be good at everything. So if you can take those lessons and apply it to your life, you can do so much more, realizing that you can say no to people, you can put your own priorities out there. That's what kind of my learning journey over the last few years. Yeah.
Excellent. I mean, I think that's a common pattern between high achievers that, like you were saying, that now, of course, they admit the fact that being vulnerable itself is a superpower.
That I'm burned out.
Yeah,
I need a break.
Yeah, and it's human, right? Yeah. I mean, of course, no denial. In the formative years, it was a taboo. The definition of mental health was perhaps unknown.
Correct.
But now people do realize it's important for you to accept it, because that's your first step of getting support.
Yes.
And
accept, ask for help.
And work on it. And it's not an illness which will plague you for a lifetime. Correct. But you work on it and you only are going to get better. And correct. I think there's enough examples we have seen in entertainment, Bollywood, sports.
Deepika Padukone talking about mental health, opening a foundation.
Yes. Yeah.
That will do wonders for billions. Like, look at her reach, how much more that can help.
Right. So I think these are good signs as we grow. As you were talking, I was trying to understand that because you've lived in very early in your career a very regimented life, so to say, right? I mean, very templatized. And now you also have a certain routine being a mother and also an entrepreneur. Of course, as an Olympian, the day of Olympian is very different, right? And but what I would rather want to know is, what are common traits, what you're seeing being in your Olympian days to your being your mother and your entrepreneur? Are there any common traits what
Common
you see?
threads, I think one is, unfortunately, as much as I'd love to sleep in the morning,
You still don't get it.
yeah, not have an alarm clock, read the papers in bed, wake up to the birds chirping, I've realized it's not going to happen. Only because I've chosen the fact that I need to finish my workout early in the morning. I need to finish my classes early in the morning. So the rest of the day I have time with the kids. I have time to work on my business. So I think that's never going to change. I've given up now. I've, accepted that I have to be a morning person. And so that's one thing that's never changed. I'm up 4:30 most days. My alarm is up. I'm out of bed and I do whatever. Different days I do different things. Some days it's mom duty. Some days it's the entrepreneur. Some days the athlete. And another thing I'd say is and this might sound very funny as thing, but to be kind. It's a very random, quality, but I feel that's the most important thing across my years. I mean, even as an athlete, and I'm very aggressive, I'm very competitive, but the people who are training with me, I am very close to them. Even to date, I mean, not just me, but we are all very close. So one thing is they talk about sports, uniting people and the bonds you form. I think I've kind of tried to replicate that the rest of my life. So even having an academy, I still have my coaches who have one group. Then I have the young kids, so on Sunday we have like a pizza party for all my swimmers who went for the state meet. Nobody won a medal, but that we are celebrating the fact that they put in that hard work. So you have this wonderful support system around you, but also the fact that when you're working with a team, with a big group, I found one of the most undervalued traits of a leader, or at least somebody that I want to be, somebody who can be kind, because you don't know what people are going through. Like just yesterday, one of my swimmers, she's middle-aged, she has a son, she's a foreigner, and she put out this lovely post and she said, I was at the point where all my best friends had left India and I joined swimming, and now I have this whole community of people around me and I feel this new sense of excitement and, just so you don't know even a kind word that you say to others, how much that has helped. So I look at it across my life, like my coach, small things like, him sponsoring me to do a tournament out of his own goodwill, whether it was, when I was going through a tough time being a mom, two of my best friends who had kids just before me, so they were a little bit more, this mom group, my best friends for life, who've like taken me under their wing, helped me out, stood by me through tough times. So I think just people who can, I think you need to know who's in your corner, and you need to be kind regardless, even if it's somebody, an acquaintance that you meet. So this is a common thread I found of the people that I want to hang out with, is people who can be kind, at the end of the day, whether they're CEOs or whether they're a small kid. I think that's a trait I value. And the last thing I think for me is to manage your time. Your time is so infinite. I mean, it's so valuable that you really need to guard it with your life. So that is why for me saying no is about protecting my time and seeing how can I best allocate it, So not just on the tasks. Earlier I had my calendar. I still have my calendar where I put in all this is my meeting, this thing, kids have this, play date but when I went for one of these motivational talks, we were on a panel and I heard another woman talk about the fact that she was also influenced by her boss, who said, more than putting in my work schedule, in my calendar, I put my fun stuff. I'm going out for dinner with my friends. I'm going on a holiday on this week. Because when you look at your calendar, you're going to be like, oh my God, I have so much to do. It's also about, okay, this week is a bit tough, but in a week's time, I'm going to be in Singapore. I'm going to be on a holiday with my family. So while you have to manage time, you also need to take that time, figure out what time you can for yourself, with your family, in your sport. So that has never changed. I've had that structure, I would say. But now instead of having my day structured around being productive, I have the productive parts and the parts where I can relax, the time with my family. So those elements have not really changed. Yeah.
When you were talking earlier about those tough times during COVID, I was trying to connect the dot. I think also, and I'm sure you know this very well, but from a different lens, I realized that embracing failure and uncertainty kind of came very naturally to you now because I remember sports. Because I remember in particular that, and this is public, that you had to make a tough choice to retire early because there was financial issues at home, and you had a physical injury, and you had to figure out how to bounce back. And now, when you were talking to me about the tough times in pandemic, where family is discussing should we go out and look for alternative options. you know you will bounce back. You know that's something which came to you. So that might have come very naturally to you. But when you look back and introspect, do you think that actually anchored, or you're wired like that now?
No, I think it has purely come from sports. Like I mentioned, I was a very quiet girl, not necessarily very confident. I certainly wouldn't have had the conviction that I had if it wasn't for sports. It started from a small way, like me wanting to lead the lane. You know, we swim in a lane where I swim. After 5 seconds, the next swimmer. So I wanted to lead. I wanted to be the fastest. But when you're leading a lane at a very young age, you realize that if you stop, if you're coughing, you swallow water and you stop, all 7, 8 swimmers behind you would stop. So from a very young age, I realized, okay, I have to lead, I have to do this. But also realized, because you said we learn to fail so often in sports. Like one of the worst things I feel nowadays is in schools and in colleges. It's great to give participation certificates out, but I hate the thing of giving all kids medals. Like having a race at an older age. I mean, younger age, yes, you want to encourage participation. When they're older enough to understand, you want to explain to them that the person came first, second, third. If you came fourth, fifth, sixth, try harder next year, work on your weaknesses and come back and try and win. But giving everybody medals, like, everybody, don't talk about failure. Everyone's a winner. No, sometimes in life, there are people who will do better than you, who will achieve more. So I think as athletes, we failed so many times. Like Michael Jordan talks about, everyone sees the points that I made, but I lost so many shots. Yeah. I lost games where the entire game was, on me. Similarly, for me, I look at it as I qualified for one Olympics, that is 2000, but I didn't qualify for 96 and 2004. That's when I decided to retire post 2004. So I have learned more from my failures than I have from my one success. So the failures teach you a lot more about yourself. Can you get through it? There's light at the end of the tunnel. You live to fight another day. It feels in that moment that there is no hope, you hear about so many kids committing suicide or adults. The point is they feel like there's no hope, So when I did a suicide gatekeeper course where they teach you the one thing that can save a person's life is to give them hope. Like, hey, your dog, what will happen to your dog if something happens to you? There's somebody depending on you. What about your parents who are old, elderly? They'll miss you. So I think keeping that hope alive, always, and it's not always about goals only, when we were in COVID, we didn't know what the future was like, there was not like actually any goal. But I had that belief that, no, we've built this company, we believe in it. I'm sure there's a place for sports coaching in a post-pandemic world. And now you won't believe this year's probably been the highest number of adults that we've seen in the sport of swimming, in learning how to swim. I'm not talking about competitive sport. We lost a lot of competitive athletes in those years, yes. We lost, kids lost out on those 2 very important years. Even my own kids, getting into all those skills. But seeing people coming into the sport in droves, saying health is important to me. After a hard day of work, swimming is the one thing. It's like meditation for me. It gives me so much of joy. And I'm like, oh, wow, thank God we stuck to our guns. And so many of my coaches and even my husband says, like, I don't know how you had the vision. Like he thinks but for me, it was this never say die attitude. You have a goal, a passion, you follow through, till the end. So I think that comes just from my sports background. It was something learned. It is definitely, if you look at nurture versus nature, definitely not in my nature, it was nurtured. It was through sports, which is why any age you can still learn these things. If you feel like you're not doing so well at work, you lack the confidence. It could be also physically you may not be at your fittest. Mentally, you're not getting some time off. So that's why I say go. It doesn't have to be a professional kind of sport. It could be playing table tennis on your own table with your family. It could be bonding, with them. It could be getting yourself fitter, walking up the stairs to office. It could be small things you do for yourself, which will have a huge impact on your confidence, on your life. Like I'm so confident now I can talk in front of huge audiences. It only came over the years of, maybe fumbling, and I've done so many interviews in my life. Sometimes I'm tongue-tied, not knowing what to say. But it's only over the years that I've built up these skills. So like anything else, it takes time and it takes effort.
What was it like meeting Muhammad Ali?
Oh, that was like such a pivotal moment, I mean, there are a few people that I cannot explain, the kind of aura, even if it's a Rahul Dravid, Leander Paes. So 2 great moments for me in terms of sporting heroes. I would say one is Muhammad Ali. So we were all at the Olympic Village. We had heard that he was in town and that he would make an attempt. And I happened to be lucky enough to be in the huge dining hall where thousands of athletes dine. And we heard everyone saying, Muhammad Ali, Muhammad Ali. He had a huge security team around him because, a lot of people know he's got Parkinson's. He's got very, very advanced stages. His hands shake. He can't sometimes speak fully. He still stood up there. He just captured the audience. They allowed 4-5 athletes, so it was not a big crowd, to come and shake his hand. So one of my friends was an Indonesian swimmer. She got to shake Muhammad Ali's hands. And it was such a great moment for me, because hanging on my aunt, my dad's sister's home, was a picture of her with Muhammad Ali. When he came in his prime, he was, world champion. He came, and he's a beautiful picture of him smiling as if she's the only girl in the room and shaking her hand. And from a young kid, I would say, wow, you have a picture of Muhammad Ali. She's like, don't worry, it's in my will. I'm leaving it to you. And here, Muhammad Ali is in front of me, So I was so emotional. I didn't get to go anywhere close to him. Maybe he was about 50 meters in front of me, but I was standing on my toes. We were standing on benches. But it's to show you how much sports can inspire people, which is why even me as a sports person, I may not have won Olympic medals, but I understand how important, if some small kid comes to me and says, can I have an autograph? Or were you nervous in your first competition? How important that was. And the reason I understand that, even somebody like a Leander Paes, I used to idolize him. He was, Atlanta bronze medalist. He was world champion. So in 2000, when I qualified, I'm like, my first exciting thing about, okay, yes, I'm going to swim at the Olympics, but I'm going to meet Leander Paes. So I told my dad, I was so excited. I had a full speech planned. Hi, Leander, I'm Nisha. I've qualified for this. And I got off the bus to go back to our rooms in the Olympic Village. And I came face to face to Leander. He was taking a bus to go to practice. And he had shaved his hair off. He was bald. And for the first time in my life, one of the few times, I was tongue-tied. I was just like, I didn't know what to say. And to show you what kind of, what really to me is a leader. He knew every single athlete's names because he was the captain of the team. I mean, even if he wasn't, I think he's somebody who would still know. He immediately said, hi, Nisha. I'm like, oh, Leander Paes knows my name. And he's like, how are you doing? Like, I heard you qualified for the 200 freestyle. And I was just like nodding like this excited schoolgirl. And, just him, once or twice I managed to meet him in the Olympic Village at the food court. And I told him, I'm having this back issue, which later turned out to be a very serious issue. I was having pain. He said, what are you getting done? I said, I'm going to the physiotherapist here. We didn't even have our own physiotherapist in those days. I was going to the Olympic Village physiotherapist. They were taping up my back. He said, don't worry, you've trained your whole life for this. How many meters are you swimming? 200? What is your average daily mileage? I was like, 16, 18 kilometers. Exactly. It's just 200 meters. You'll do it, So somebody who's been there, done that, for him to tell you it'll be fine. I was like, Leander said it'll be fine. And, that gives you so much of confidence. So I think that's what somebody like him or a Muhammad Ali can inspire you, which is why I get so angry sometimes when, our athletes don't speak out, whether it's a wrestling protest right now. We need more female athletes to come and support, or just athletes to come out and support our athletes, to voice their opinion. And, nowadays athletes are even given lessons on how to talk in front of media, but you have you're in such a position of power, such a position of influence, you can influence all these youngsters. And, if a Virat Kohli had to say something, it's like his word is like gold.
Yeah.
So I feel like they should come out and talk more about important issues, things that matter, whether it's mental health. And they are doing it, not to say that no, but they can do more. Yeah. On social media now, you can impact so much more. So that's the benefit.
Since you brought Virat Kohli, I think it's apt to ask, do you feel this over obsession we have for cricket,
Yes.
even this date, has somehow crippled India's possible potential in other sports to go mainstream?
Definitely. I mean, on principle, I don't watch cricket, not because I don't like the sport. I don't know enough about it, yes. But I realize that anytime you ask anybody anything, they talk about cricket. What sports do you watch? Cricket. Things have changed. I mean, I see a huge change. A lot of it is social media. It is better coverage. It's also federations. Like, see, the BCCI has done a lot to popularize cricket. Other federations need to do the same. And you see it. Like, we went recently for a volleyball league. My kids were so excited about volleyball. It's run by one of my friends who actually, his company organizes it. But the fact that 9-year-olds can get excited about a sport like volleyball because there are leagues, they're cheerleaders, that same element of what they bring into IPL. So I wouldn't say cricket only. I'd put a lot of the blame on the Indian public. Yes, cricket is great. It's fun. Even though it's not our national sport, it's considered our national sport. But it's great to see that there are so many people who are excited about hockey, who know the fact that we got a bronze medal and we came fourth, in the men's and the women's. they're putting their kids into other sports. But we need to have this thing where if your child has to decide between cricket and, say, swimming, and they're equally talented, you don't think that, Virat Kohli makes a lot of money, he has endorsement deals, his career is set, he'll become a commentator, or he'll open up his own sports, clothing store. There's so much more in sports. And then even if you're a swimmer, and even if you get only up to the state or the national level, there's so many avenues in sports that you can get into. So many ex-athletes who are realizing, I need to popularize my sport. They're coming back to India. Earlier, we lost so many top athletes. They're still in sports, no doubt, but they're in some foreign university. They studied there. They've opened up their business there. Now you have athletes maybe studying there, but coming back to India. What have you learned there from the best teams? You might be a sports doctor coming back and giving our athletes in India. So why are we getting foreign coaches and foreign doctors and foreign sports and, strength and conditioning experts? Go and get what kind of knowledge you have and bring it back to our country. So I think that is something you can learn from cricket. So many cricketers stay in the sport. Of course, monetarily also it makes sense. But we need this from athletes. We know the tough time that we've been through, but we also know the talent and the fact that it's possible. So we need to come back instead of just cribbing about, cricket takes so much. We also need to give back to the sport in whatever way. So for me, it was about getting into grassroots level coaching. That's where I also find the joy more than a competitive coaching, And so we can't only blame cricket. But yes, if you had a chance to watch the Olympics and a test match, surely you should be thinking, wow, I have many athletes from different sports winning for our country. Maybe in the break time of the Olympics, I'll go watch some cricket. There'll be 100 cricket matches, I think we have too much cricket. So even the media now is putting more emphasis. They're putting more spotlight on the others. Social media is helping. There is a trend that goes towards it, but I still feel we have to stop being a cricket-obsessed country.
Yeah.
So a really good example I have of a country like Australia, who I find is very well-rounded.
Yeah.
They love cricket. Everyone knows, right? I was in a state-level competition, not even the nationals, and the pool is divided into half. It was a short course meet, so they put a bulkhead. It divides a 50-meter pool into two. They had some recreational swimmers on the left side. This was in Perth in Australia. And we had a state meet going on for the short course. I was competing there. Suddenly I can hear a little bit of talking and somebody saying Gilly, Adam Gilchrist. Even though I don't know much, I know enough to know he's a cricketer. He's, I think he was captain at the time. So a few people went and just had a look over. He's playing with his kid he was playing with some kids in the pool. So people went and looked like, oh, okay. And they came back to watch the meet. Now, if this is in India, so I'll give you the other extreme, right? So Rahul Dravid's kids used to swim with us. And I didn't tell any of my coaches because I knew what will happen if they know whose kids it is. And his wife is very unassuming. She came and sat at the pool and they had no clue. Last day, he wanted to see how his kids are swimming. And he had not messaged me or anything. He just showed up at the pool. I was just reaching and I got like 5-6 calls. People are messaging me. Oh my God, Rahul Dravid's here at the pool. Yeah, because his kids are swimming with us. What? Why didn't you tell us? I said, because of this. You won't believe, I literally could not conduct my class that day. It was the last day of class where we normally give out certificates. All the kids are lining up, which is understandable. They're excited, So Rahul was signing autographs. Then when we're trying to get back, okay, all the kids have the autograph. Let's get back to the water, guys, because Rahul wants to see his own kids swimming, right? All the moms are standing there. Rahul, my brother went to school with you in Joseph's, So that is the kind of obsession I'm talking about. One is recognize that they're also human, and they also need their space. Imagine how annoying it is for him. He wants to see his kids swimming.
Of course.
So this obsession with, treating them as gods and then they don't perform and then stoning their houses and burning effigies. So that obsession and that, that disappointment that comes, they have to tone that down, and then watch other sports. You have amazing athletes. We have fencers, Would you even know the name of the fencer a female athlete who went to the Olympics?
We have world champions who are archers.
Correct. We have archers. We have even the more indigenous sports now. It's great to see, the Kabaddi League.
Yeah.
So it's not that there isn't change. It should happen faster. And one of the good ways I think that can help bridge the two, cricket and Olympic sports or other sports, is cricketers start investing in other teams. Could be a football team, coming to events, like even a Rahul Bose is now an actor, but he's a rugby. President. So it's people like that who can bring the worlds together. Glamour, Bollywood and sports. So Deepika and Prakash Padukone do this well where, the Go Sports Foundation, they have a foundation. Deepika sometimes calls actors. They raise money for athletes. So this is the way we can bridge it. So I'm not saying that Sachin Tendulkar, has he done anything for other sports? So he should be putting, effort, time, money into, he's obviously such a lover of sports. Do something more, I would say. So that's my only disappointment, I would say, with some athletes where they can do more. But somebody like a Rahul Dravid, might be, playing a big role coaching right now, but he does a lot for other sports as well. So that's what I want to see from the cricketers.
Yeah. No, I think as you were speaking about fandom, I was just trying to jog back to the thought of you meeting Muhammad Ali, and I was thinking that the only regret possibly you would have had is there was no selfie was not invented then.
Exactly.
Right? Or else
even just videos. I didn't even have a video camera.
Yeah, mobile camera would not be, else you would have had a Muhammad Ali on your room itself.
I mean, I have one blurred photo from the side. We had those old film cameras and you can't see anything. You can just see backs of people's heads.
But you would have had your viral moment where you're 100 feet away and you're taking selfie and Muhammad Ali was waving for you.
So that's why it helps. Social media helps. It's a boon and it's a curse.
Of course, we
didn't have that distraction either.
Right.
But it can help. It's popularized a lot of sports.
Right. So the unique other side, which now you have is, and we keep talking, the mother and entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And you have went out in public and you put it out there that you also had a tough time getting back to your fitness. Postpartum, you had added weight.
Exactly.
I think it would be cliche to ask why it was important to you, but how did you manage knowing that mentally and physically you were all trained and things for reasons known went downturn? But to get it back and build a milestone and build back your kind of way back to your fitness, and not just, and interestingly, you didn't go swimming as your first pursuit. You took something which is absolutely opposite. You went running you took CrossFit. What were your mental model to choose those sports and how did you build on that?
It's a good question. Why wouldn't I just go back to swimming? One is, I think you'll always compare yourself with your old swimming self. So however fit I am in the water, I will never be at Olympic qualifying kind of standard. So maybe for me, it would have been a very, almost like a vicious circle, improve and you think you're doing well and you check your timings oh my God, this is not good. But also I feel like I needed a change of scenario to kind of something that was not comfortable, not natural. I'm not a natural runner. I'm a natural swimmer. I have great feel of the water. I'm really bad. If you see, it's because I have great endurance. I have trained for many years. My cardio levels, my VO2 max levels are good. It helped me transition that way. But if you look at my technique, it was not great. I did have injuries that I had to deal with. I was carrying a lot of weight. So in the water, you're weightless, right? It's a very low impact exercise. Here, there's high impact. So whether it's my knees, my ankles. So it wasn't very easy. I just took to sports. I think it is, of course, an easy way to lose weight. Between diet, I did make changes to my diet, but I'd say I focused more on the physical part, saying, I have done this. I know I can do it. I can set goals for myself. I can get to a certain point. And that little bit of challenge, if you don't have some kind of end goal, it's tough to keep doing it. So I would say, okay, I'll first try and complete a 5-kilometer run. Then it became 10. So I remember before my 40th birthday, I said, I need to do something challenging to myself. Epic, to really mark, and also maybe to prove to myself I've still got it. I can push myself. And I trained for a 50-kilometer ultra marathon, and I did it. I finished a 50K. But I think even those things meant so much to me. But why I did it is not, and I'm not saying everyone should do it. I also trained it's more about the process, right? That is where I think athletes enjoy the process. So I loved training with my teammates, learning small things like how do you prevent chafing? How do you hydrate in a run? Do you carry a bottle? Small things like that, which we did even in swimming, learning about a new sport, the intricacies, talking to pro athletes. And they're so excited. Some of them wow, I'm giving tips to an Olympian, but I'm not an Olympian in running. I'm almost like 100%, like a baby pretty much. I joined a running club. I had a great community. So one is the sense of community. I knew that if I have other people there, it's so much easier to push yourself. So yes, there are people who are driven, but you won't be driven all the time, which is why having a group, even doing it in office, you have great facilities to work out, get fit in office, use those. If you have other people doing it, even if you've had a tough day or a bit tired, you tend to join in, for the social element of it. So I think I took to running for the social element, but I think it was very tough for me because people made so many comments. I mean, I've heard it a lot. We're used to people sometimes trash talking you or trying to influence you on the, on the race day, on the pool deck. But, so many people at once, when I had my kids, they would say, oh, are you sure she went to the Olympics in swimming? Because, look how big she is. She must have gone for wrestling. And, they'd laugh. So even though I thought it didn't affect me, it did affect me. So at one point during COVID, when I had the time, I always used to say if I had more time, I will lose more weight. I will get back. I was training 3 times a day. I would go for a run in the morning, come back and do some small workouts in a gym that we had downstairs in our apartment. In the evening, I'd take my kids out for a walk, or we'd be doing skipping. So 3 times a day I was training. But I also realized that I went over the limit, like that's another issue with being an athlete is you push yourself to the max. Even in terms of food, I was eating very little, I was not giving myself enough. So yes, I lost weight. I got to my goal weight. But after a while, I realized, every day I'd stand on the weighing scale. And I'm realizing, okay, my kids are only 9. They used to start standing on the weighing scale and they don't have to worry about something like weight. I realized, there's a term called disordered eating. And I was indulging in that, where I was so focused on, oh my God, I had pizza last night. I won't eat breakfast today. And I was checking my weight. I've come back from a wonderful holiday with my family, but I'm worried about, I put on 1 kg. I realized there has to be an in-between. I'm no longer a pro athlete. It's not like boxing where I'm going to weigh in and my weight is so important. I need to have this balance. So I literally in the last 6 months have stood on my weighing scale maybe twice or thrice. So that's a huge win for me. But also to talk to my kids about being healthy, eating well, So I think there's a lot of different things, and me getting back from being very unfit, very unhealthy, it was also building up my self-confidence, learning who I am as the new Nisha Millet, not new, but like a different version of it. I'm still the Olympian. I'm still if you see me competing, I will still compete. You can be my best friend or my sister or even my daughter. Sometimes she'll say race. I'm like, come on, I don't let my daughter beat me. So she knows that when she does actually beat me, she would have earned it,
Yeah.
But at the same time, the other side of me, which is the more vulnerable side, who talks about mental health, talks about the fact I don't have everything sorted, who's still learning and growing with my kids. So I'm embracing that side a little more. And trust me, it's a lot more fun than the new me is a lot more fun than the athlete me, I would say.
No, I mean, this is a fascinating way to kind of, close this amazing conversation. I mean, an Olympian saying that everything is still not sorted for me.
Yeah,
and
no
I'm
way,
still
yeah.
trying to figure it out, what's in for me. But it's just been amazing conversation, Nisha, knowing that other side of yours. And, as we wrap up, I think one message, in fact, two, but one first message I want you to pass out is to parents.
Yeah.
What is that you will have to say to them, because you've been there and now you're also a parent.
Yeah.
And I think you were telling me that the kids are already aspiring to be
Yes.
an Olympian in 2032.
Yeah.
And good luck to both the young champions. What is that you will have to tell to the parents to kind of what basics they have to think, what are the toolkits they will have to figure it out right now, so that they can encourage their kids to possibly have some Olympians in future?
I would say the first thing I would tell them is make sure that the goals that you're chasing, especially whether it's an educational or a sports related goal, is actually your kids' goals. That you are not setting it for them. Like, it's so easy for me to say, yes, I want my kids to be a swimmer. I have a swimming academy, but for them, like, I didn't push them till now. They're 9. There are many kids who had 6 are swimming state level competitions, but I wanted it to come for them. So when they actually said, I want to start training 4-5 times a week, one is to let them have their own goals. That's something I learned from my parents. And one is, if you have 2 kids, never to compare. This is it's very easy to fall into that trap. It's very difficult as a twin mom because literally their date of birth is the same. Their weight, height is almost the same. So it's so easy to say, if your sister's doing it, why can't you do it? But they're different individuals. They have different goals, different temperaments, like totally. And for parents to understand that the greatest gift I think you can give your kids is presence. Your own presence. I understand if you have a 9-to-5 job and you're not able to be there, when you are with them, to be fully present, right? And you can hire dietitians, nutritionists, sports psychologists, but your relationship with your kid will have much more lasting impact, not only in their sports career, but the rest of their life. Like how they see you dealing with failures. If somebody picks a fight, how do you react to that person? They even watched how I deal with my employees. Sometimes they'll say, oh, you always tend to be a little more nice to them than Papa, he's a little more strict. But they're watching everything you do. So if you realize that you can have the best experts around you, but if you are not, being positive, if you're not able to talk about how you're overcoming fears, failures, and letting them figure some things out, you can't have everything, you can't do everything for them. But one is being a good role model, letting them make some mistakes, but being there for them. Like, if I have a really important meeting, but if my child is sick, it's your choice, but I will, take the time to be with my child, to say that you are more important. So, everybody has their own goals and their own thing. But I think for me, what has helped me in my life is my parents being there. Even now, if I call them to talk about or to vent about some, issue, they will call, how did this meeting go? They're so involved in my life, I don't have to meet them every day. But it's that sense of they are still around. They are still my people. They're like, like they say, it takes a village, whether it is to raise a kid or to run a business. It's a team effort. So parents need to just be there for the kids. That's the best thing. You can have all the experts and you don't even know what's happening in your child's life. That's not going to help them get anywhere. I mean, it might take them to a point. But this is what the involved parents are, the ones you'll see whose kids are achieving, who are winning, or even generally a little more well adjusted in life. That's at the end of the day, that's more important than having Olympians in your family, is to somebody who adjusts well, can regulate their emotions, be kind to people. Those are, I think, for me, that's what's more important.
Great. And the second message I want you to tell is to not the women, but the men out there. Why is it important for them to cheer and support their women in life to stay healthy and fit? Because you're someone who said at the onset, two important men in your life, dad and your husband.
Yes.
And you've gone through all the cycles at the peak to low and come back, bounce back strong. So to the men in particular, what is your message that and how they should do to get their women in life back to their health?
Yeah, I mean, women do have very different problems to what a man has, whether it's your monthly cycles, whether it's coming back from pregnancy, or different things. I would say one is to understand that we're not exactly the same, but at the same time, in terms of the kind of roles that you play, I feel now our Indian men have to realize that they need to be a 50% equal partner. And I'm not saying, I'm not saying that do 60% of the work and let the woman take 40. I think it should be 50%. We talk about women's equality. You want to have an equal role. Just like women are going to the workplace, they're managing multiple, avenues. Similarly, you should be expected to make an omelette for yourself, comb your kids' hair into a ponytail or plait or whatever it is. So it helped for me having twins because I only had 2 sets of hands. So both my kids were crying. My husband, he is the kind of person who would do it. But I know one friend told me this very important thing. She said, as a woman, you want your husband to help or your partner to help. But when they do it, you keep criticizing them. So she's like, let him put the diaper. If he put it wrong, let him do it. Then later you can change it. But, and he learned that it's not right or whatever. So I think that helped me, the fact that I have twins and we did equal. If I changed 100 diapers, he probably changed 100. So it's so comforting for me. Like here, if I'm here today shooting this, he will go pick up my kids from school. Here and there, yes, sometimes I'll write little notes. I've kept this in the fridge for them. But I'm confident that he can do as much. So just like some days I might work more, some days he might parent more. So that is your greatest gift you can give your partner, your wife, or even your sister, is help out, talk to them about, what help can I give you? It's not just about buying gifts. Like, I really don't value that. But if my husband says, you're looking really tired, why don't I make the dosas today? Dosas may not be as good as mine, but one is I have to allow him to help. And when you give him the pass, sometimes like now my kids say, Daddy puts a better ponytail than you. No strand of hair will come out when the whole school day, So you realize that men can also do as much. So similarly, give the woman in your life, whoever it is, mother, sister, daughter, give them equal opportunities. One is you'll come up with, and you probably learn a lot from them. So be open to that. And health is so very important because when you do have issues like your monthly cycles or pregnancy, pre, post, partum, there are hormonal issues which are beyond our control. It's part of being a woman. So if your wife tells you that, today I'm having a tough time, I want to take a day off, put in that extra effort on those days. I'm sure when you are not feeling up to it, she will help as well. But one part of it is encouraging her to, go out there and do any sport or any activity. It could be walking. It doesn't have to be a sport. It could be going for a night walk when she's had a crying child the whole day, mentally and physically, to get that confidence back. And I told you, like even for an Olympian who's, who has things like, okay, I can follow this regimen, surely I'll get to my goal. Even for me, it was a struggle to get to that, So I know my husband has given up or at least changed his schedule to allow me to go every morning to do my workout. He changes his program, to go in the evenings and do his workout. So you have to have that give and take. And that's part of being a good partnership, but to prioritize health. Because if the mom is healthy and and both the parents, but the mom as well, everything goes a lot easier in the house, if you ask me.
No, fantastic, Nisha. I mean, like I said in the beginning, each one of us have the other side, and exploring your other side has been a fascinating experience. I want to wrap the conversation. You are a coach now.
Yes.
Do you have a wish list of someone you would like to coach?
I would. A lot of the athletes that I look up to are always a lot of the old school athletes. But there's a young athlete. He's a Russian youngster, and his Instagram name is Chlorine Daddy, and he's just the most confident young kid I've ever seen. And he doesn't look. He's not very. I mean, he's tall. He's not very muscular. He's just so focused. He's so with it. So confident. He's like, I'm going to beat everyone. I'd love to coach him. I will. And like I said, I'm a teacher more than a coach. I teach a lot of beginner level swimmers and I get so much of joy. But to understand his mindset when he's racing or even training, racing, we know what kind of mindset you need, but training, how does he overcome a bad day? How much more does he push himself to the other people? Does he put in extra work mentally? Does he push himself physically more? Why is he's right now the fastest man in the world? He's one of the top 3 fastest men. He's just 18 or 19. So how did it happen? And he said he was a plump kid who was just a mediocre swimmer. And then suddenly, he lost a couple of races. He made up his mind and he said, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm going to win. I'm going to win the Olympics. I'm going to win the World Championship medals. And he's doing it. So what is that one moment, So even when I talk to anybody like a Leander or, I remember meeting Leander at his last match that he played in India. A lot of us athletes went to congratulate him and honor him. It was in Bangalore itself, in KSLTA. And he immediately pulled out his phone. Nisha, look at my daughter's photo. What do you see? Okay. Now other people are saying, oh, she's so tall. She's something. I said, the look in the eyes. She's got that look in her eyes. See, you're an athlete. I asked 5 other people before this. They told me very tall, good forearm, backhand, whatever. I was like, this has nothing to do with it. It's that look in her eyes. She's got that hunger, that killer instinct, that you can see in a lot of kids. So as a coach, I would love to train athletes with that killer instinct. And it's something, one is, it has to come from within, but it also can be nurtured. So I'd love to see, his name is David Popovici. I told you his screen name, but his name is David Popovici. How does he become this, this swimming machine in the water? How does he just demolish all his competition?
Glad, Nisha. I mean, I can see the renewed teacher in you, and it's clearly evident that once a sportsman, always a sports person. You are that, and it's just so amazing to see the parallels you're drawing between being a mother, an entrepreneur, and much beyond that, being a inspiration and motivation to people from all different walks of life. Thank you. It was an absolute blast exploring and unpacking the other side.
Yeah.
And I really wish people listening and watching get a lot of cues. I certainly am very excited because I know one of my weakness, the only thing I have pushed my triathlon pursuit is because I know I really suck in my swimming. And I'm sure that doesn't come easy for many people. So if people want to reach out and get the best of Nisha's magic, what's the easy way for people to reach out and enroll to your academy?
Yeah, just go on to Instagram. I think it's a great platform where not only you might have doubts or questions. Go onto our Instagram page. We share a lot of not only tips. You may not want to come for a class. You might want to just improve in your own swimming pool. Go to our Instagram page, Nisha Millets Swimming Academy, or to my own handle. And, I'm very open to it. I recently had a video that went viral, some 200,000 views, and people from all over India asking me small details, like,
I saw a video where you were teaching people how to wear a cap.
Yes, yeah, that's
which
a
is
fun
first
video,
principle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this one was about how to breathe on the side, which is a very tough thing for swimmers. And a lot of recreational swimmers, elderly people were asking me. So it's nice because I don't mind taking time out. And even if it takes time to get to your question, I will always answer because it means that people are excited about the sport, which I love so much, So just reach out to us on Instagram. We're happy to, give you any kind of push you need. We teach 1-year-olds. So they've realized that 1-year-olds can actually be involved in water, excited, get the same kind of floating and kicking movements. So by the time they're 4, 5, they're already comfortable in the water. So they learn very quick as a baby, right? But at the same time, if you're 65, 70 or you're a triathlete like yourself, there's no real expiry, there's no end to when you can actually take up sports. They can always tone some things down. You can tailor make the sport to your specifications. So go for it.
This is a reassurance to me and to a lot of people who are sitting on the fringe that they can still get into the water. Thank you, Nisha. Absolute blast. And I really look forward to sitting again, maybe with another ultra marathon done and another CrossFit deadlift PR done to have another conversation with you.
Thanks a lot. I enjoyed it today.
Thank you, Nisha. Cheers. That's it. that was a long conversation with Nisha Millet. I had a fun time talking to her. I hope you got a lot of cues to go out and explore your other side. If you enjoyed this conversation, please let me know your comments, email, Twitter, LinkedIn, or just leave your messages on YouTube. Thank you once again. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel. See you next time.